Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing a built model review. We are taking a look at this built Revell Mercedes-Benz Unimog U1300L in 1/24 scale. So this is a Revell kit. 1/24 scale, they describe it as the Winterdienst, I think would be the pronunciation in German. So in other words, this is a winter highway maintenance vehicle. You can see the big plough blade on the front there, and there's a bit more to the kit as well, which I'll talk about in a moment. So first of all, what do we get in the what do we get in the box? What does it build up like? Well, I did do an unboxing video of this, which is available on the channel if you want to see what's in the box. Unfortunately, it's uploaded in portrait mode, so it's not the best video, but it does give you a look at what comes in the box. It's pretty good. The detail on the model is pretty good. There's a lot to it. It's a relatively complex build. In terms of the way it builds up, I would say it has probably more in common with a full-size truck, a lorry tractor unit, truck tractor unit, semi-truck, in the way it builds up, rather than a pickup or car. It's that sort of level of complexity in terms of the way the suspension goes together and the way it all fits together on the chassis and so on and so forth, and the general assembly is more like a big truck than a car. It seems to me to be quite an old kit. Having looked it up online, I think the original boxing of this was probably from the very early 1980s, if you remember the old Revell silver boxes with a photograph on the front. I think it dates from that era. It does show its age in some areas. There are some sort of odd things which are missing or just weirdly done in comparison with what I'd expect on a more modern kit. But the overall effect is pretty good. It can build up quite nicely. So we've got these nice rubber tyres which go on the steel wheels there, including a spare which fits under there. The spare is an example of one of the issues I had with the kit, in terms of the relatively vague instructions at times. There's a bracket that fits out and sticks out at right angles from the side of the chassis. When it comes to fitting the spare wheel to it, there's just an arrow to say spare wheel goes here, but it doesn't actually fit. So I kind of wiggled it into place and managed to glue it into place, sort of trapping it into the back of the cab. But yeah, that's not quite right. There's either something I didn't understand there, or that kind of doesn't really go together as they expected. Yeah, I mean, the detail is decent in places. So you've got these separate glass pieces for the tail lights. I've weathered them a bit so you can't see them actually that clearly, but they are glass pieces, or clear plastic pieces, which need to be painted in red and yellow to make the rear lamps and turn indicators, and put the license plate there as well. I mean, yeah, that's all pretty good. Everything you can see fitted to the vehicle is separate. So things like these mud guards, the diesel tank, I assume that's the battery box under there, those cab steps, they're all separate. These large front fender, front wing pieces, they're separate. Lots of details that fit onto the cab separately. This snorkel, which is optional, but I thought, well, if you can have a snorkel, why wouldn't you? These spotlights that go on the front of the cab, they didn't include clear lenses. The only thing you can do with the ones in the kit is to paint the inside silver. So I fished some clear lenses out of the spares box and fitted in. I think they look fine. The cab mirrors, they're separate pieces. Windscreen wipers, again separate. Those handles on the bonnet there, on the hood, again separate. Indicator lenses, turn signal lenses, they're separate. The headlamps built into the bumper, they're separate. They're quite hard to see because of the snowplow rig on the front. Weirdly enough, there's nothing behind them. So there's just an opening in the bumper and the lens fits in, and it's like a window. You can see straight through. However, the way that they've moulded the kind of beam scattering ridges into the lens means that you can't see through it, and it actually looks much better than I thought it would. I thought it would look really strange actually, but it looks fine, I think. The blade itself is almost a model in its own right. I mean, there's a lot of detail there. You've got the hydraulics, you've got the hydraulic hoses, which are the kit came with hoses, but they were almost white, very, very pale grey. And I wasn't too sure how I was going to paint them a more realistic colour with them being made out of flexible vinyl. So again, into the spares box, pulled out some black vinyl tubing from an old Revell truck kit, left over from an old Revell truck kit. But yeah, you can do an awful lot with the blade. All these rams are fitted together separately. The various bits of the hydraulic rams go together separately. All of that fits together separately. So it's quite a job to build the plough in its own right, but it does mean you can angle it and position it however you wanted to. I just set it to be in the dead ahead position and off the ground, as it probably would be if the vehicle was parked up or getting ready to drive somewhere. On the front of the blade itself, it did come. Oh, I just noticed I've got my little rangefinder stick is bent over at an angle there. I must have hit that with something. Straighten that properly later. These lights that go on top of the blade, there were lights moulded in. Again, they didn't have clear lenses, and they were covered with flash. Didn't look very good at all. So I just cut those off and threw them away, and got these lamps out of the spares box again with the glass lenses from the spares box. Now they aren't exactly the same as the ones that were on there, but I mean, I think they just fit and do the job fine. And they're not exactly the right ones, but I think they're okay. So you've got some nice features as well. Things like the beacon there attached to the rear of the cab, flashing beacon. This sort of pickup bed, which again, it's typical for the real vehicle, the real Unimog. One thing that's different about this from the box image, or if you see other reviews or photos of this online, you'll notice that what I've got in the rear bed of mine is different to what comes in the box. So that's what comes in the box, and you'll notice this big grit bin in the back, which again is quite a detailed thing in its own right. And if I just show you the paint guide, it's probably the quickest way of showing you that. You've got a gritter with this extendable hydraulic arm with a gritting head on the back of it, and there are chains to secure it into place and all sorts of things. I didn't fit that to mine. I was going to, but there was a reason why I didn't, and that reason is I wasn't paying attention properly. So when I got to this page of the instructions, there, assembling the rear bed, that all looks nice and straightforward, doesn't it? And it is. It fits together very well. It's very robust actually when it's done. They said fitting this tailboard here was optional. So I thought to myself, well, I'm going to fit that. I think it'll look far better with the tailboard in place. What I didn't realise was, if you do fit that into place, that tailboard, it is then not possible to fit the gritter, which goes on and actually fits into the hinge locators for the tailboard there, and which then needs the tailboard to be missing in order for the gritter to lower and deploy. So having done that, and it was fixed in place and painted, it was too late for me to do anything about it really without risking really damaging it trying to remove that tailboard, so I left it in place. However, doing some research online, I found some images and YouTube videos of these things at work on the highways in Germany, and found this is actually quite a realistic configuration for one of these snowplows. So what we have here is the bed, which is filled with, I assume, grit. I mean, it's some sort of aggregate, but I'm assuming that's road grit. And that seems to be used as ballast to provide a bit of traction for the rear axle, I assume. I mean, these things are four-wheel drive. I think their Unimogs are very capable off-road vehicles as far as I know. But a bit of extra traction when you're pushing snow with that big blade can only be a good thing. So I think that's why they load the rear beds of them up with grit like that. So that's what I decided to do. I made grit using some stuff intended for model railways actually. So I used this stuff here, fine ballast from Woodland Scenics, which it's not exactly like real road grit, but to me it gives the right kind of impression. So I put some foam board in there in the bed, and then heaped up some of that model railway ballast on top with some PVA, and then just gave it a shoot over with some Tamiya matte lacquer just to fix everything in place, which seems to have worked fine. It's probably loose here and there, but it doesn't matter, it's fairly firm. Also a couple of road cones, traffic cones, I put in the bed there. I didn't see any images or videos of them with those cones in the bed, but I had the cones. I got them for another project. They're from a guy on eBay who 3D prints them and sells them. And I like them so much I thought, let's put them in there. It's a bit of added interest, a bit of extra detail. It looks right to me. The weathering, I did it very simply really. The chassis and wheels and tyres and the lower parts of the bodywork got a very, very simple, quick blow over with some grey aerosol paint. I then further weathered that with some white Tamiya weathering powder and added some black washes to the various panel lines and so on the cab and some parts of the bed. The blade itself, the weathering on that, which was as close as I could really get to recreating the weathered finish on the real Unimog snowplow blades. I primed the blade with white primer, then gave it a good heavy coat of silver metallic automobile paint, car aerosol paint. I then mixed some water and sea salt together and blobbed it on around the parts of the blade where I thought it would be worn, sort of sprinkled it in place. Let that dry overnight. Then gave it a medium coat of a sort of medium thick coat of grey aerosol paint. It's a Humbrol dark grey, I think it was, and then a very fine dust over with some dark brown, very fine, and then sprayed orange, the same orange as the cab and bodywork. When that was dry, I then got an emery stick and used that to rub away and remove the salt, and then finished up with some steel wool and just working an up and down motion, used that to clean away any remaining salt and gradually wear through the layers of paint, revealing the grey and silver beneath. When I'd done that, it looked a little bit bright and a little bit stark. The orange and silver was too bright and it contrasted too much. So again, I just got out the dark grey aerosol and gave it a quick arm's length blow over, and it sort of toned it all down and brought it all together so it looks something like the real blades look on the real Unimogs. Some of the oddities with the kit, it didn't come with any glazing for the rear windows for some reason. I really don't know why, unless I just missed it in my kit, but I don't think I did. There was nothing missing from the clear frame and I couldn't see anything in the box. So I just used some clear plastic off of some packaging, glued it to the inside of the cab to cover those rear windows, nice and easy. I made a replacement aerial out of a piece of strut sprue because there was only a sort of a aerial base in the kit and I thought it should have a proper aerial on board. That's pretty much everything. Overall, it's a bit of a challenging kit because of the vagueness of some of the instructions. And the age of it as well. There is some cleaning up to be done. There's quite a lot of flash on the chassis components, but it's an old kit. It's to be expected, really. I think with a bit of patience, it builds up into something fun and something unusual, and something quite big as well. So just to give you an indication of size, that's a 1/24 scale Mini Cooper. So obviously I've picked something deliberately very small. That gives you an idea of the relative size of the Unimog. There you go. That sort of shows you the sort of size vehicle you're dealing with. Bigger than I thought it was going to be, actually. Anyway, overall, good fun build. A few stresses and twinges here and there, but you can build it up into something really good fun if you put some effort in. Hope you enjoyed that. Thanks very much for watching.